Hallo, ich bin... Why have I decided to do this? Ich bin Imogen. Imogen? Wow, that's a new way of saying my name. Ich bin Imogen. Ich bin 19 Jahre alt und ich bin eine Gap Year Studentin. Okay, I can't translate what my little intro bit, but if you haven't already guessed, today's video is going to be all about German. So first of all, I just want to apologise. I'm wearing different clothes in these different clips because I filmed them on different days because this video has taken me a little while to put together. So I have now learnt German twice. I've learnt it once at school for my GCSE exam, and I've learnt it when I actually went over to Germany to au pair. And both times I learnt German in a completely different way. In school, the emphasis was on passing the exams, whereas when I was in Germany, it was all about being able to communicate with other people that I met on the street, in the supermarket, and just being able to live in Germany. And looking back, since learning German again, there are a lot of different things that I would have done differently whilst I was doing my German GCSE, which would have helped me to learn the language a lot more and also learn it a lot faster. So today I'm going to be sharing all of those tips that I picked up whilst I was in Germany with you so that hopefully you can learn German a lot faster. So tip number one is to immerse yourself in the language. Immersing yourself in the language is honestly the best thing that you can do for yourself. And the best way to do this is to go to the country where your language is spoken. However, it's important to note that just going to the country isn't enough. When you're there, you need to make a really conscious effort to learn the language. When I first went over to Germany, my German was so poor. I really couldn't remember much beyond hello, how are you? And that meant that I didn't make a lot of effort to speak German. My host family over in Germany also could speak English, and so a lot of the time I would just rely on their translation into English so that I could understand what was going on, instead of really pushing myself out of my comfort zone and really challenging myself to learn that language fully. If I had thrown myself in a bit more from the beginning, I definitely would have learnt German so much faster, and it would have helped to improve my confidence. So even if you're going to Germany for 1 week for a holiday, if you go into a supermarket, you have to make a conscious effort to speak German and not just rely on the fact that a lot of people in foreign countries can speak really good English and will identify that you're English from your accent and just speak English to you. I'm also aware, however, that not everyone has the time or the money to go over to Germany, particularly if you're like studying for your GCSE exams. You're thinking, Imogen, when am I going to be hopping on a plane over to Germany in term time? Absolutely not. So if you can't actually go to the country that you want to go to, then bring the language to you. This means watching Netflix shows in German or whatever language you're trying to learn, listening to the music on Spotify in that language, and subconsciously a lot of the vocab will be going into your head. Even if you don't necessarily know what it means, you will be kind of learning the pronunciation so that when you come across that word, you understand how to pronounce it correctly, which again helps you in learning the language. One tip that I have that is specific to German is using something called Nico's Weg. I personally use Nico's Weg when I'm back in England and I'm trying to keep up my German. And here's a little clip from me the other day when I was trying to watch one of the clips to catch up on what had happened in Nico's Weg. Nico's Weg is like a TV show that has been produced by the German government in order to help language learners to learn German. It's done at 4 different levels. It's done at A1, A2, B1 and B2 using European classification of languages. And today I'm picking it up at B1, so I'm going to watch the overview of what's happened so far, and then I'm going to continue to go on to the next sections. I love the music for this. So because the German government is trying to make this interesting and I'm watching highlights in about 7 minutes of what's happened in 4 hours, it's going very quickly and it's quite funny to watch. So Nico's come from Spain. He's already managed to lose his passport in his bag and his aunt's address who he's meant to be staying with. And now he has gone to this party and he's met Selma. Selma is the refugee who he's about to fall in love with, and she's come from Syria. So there you go. I love how this is quite current, quite up to date. Selma's family have just found out that they're allowed to stay in Germany, so yippee for her. They've just got their like refugee status. Oh look, and then Selma finds Nico's bag. Oh, it's just meant to be. Nico and Selma spend a lot of time together. I wonder what's going to happen here. So Selma's parents don't know about Nico and Selma, who are now, I think, falling in love. Dun dun dun! This is all getting very interesting. Someone's pregnant. I'm not quite sure who this is, but ich bin schwanger, I think, means I am pregnant. And then it all gets interesting because Nico's brother Pepe from Spain, I couldn't have sounded more British, Pepe from Essex, comes to Spain, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, the parents want you back. So I basically then decided I wasn't going to tell you the entire plot of what happens in case you actually wanted to watch it. So if you want to find out more about what happens in Nico's Weg, which means Nico's journey, then you're going to have to watch the clips which are available on YouTube or on the German government site DW something or other. I'll leave the link in the description down below. Or, I mean, I do have 28 minutes of footage of me just watching Nico's Weg, so if you want to see that in a whole video, let me know. My next tip is to focus on the right words. A lot of people talk when they talk about learning foreign language. They say, oh, but I've changed my phone into Spanish. But since when are you going to need the words for update or, I don't know, unlock your phone in a foreign language? That doesn't come up in conversation every single day. And so that's not the sort of vocab that you want to be focusing on. Instead, I would recommend learning the most commonly spoken words, because if they're commonly spoken in Germany, they're likely to be words that you're going to need for your writing and also for your speaking exam if you're doing GCSE, or if you're trying to communicate in Germany, they're obviously going to be the most useful words. There's a rule called the 20-80 rule or the 80-20 rule, and it's quite well known within like the idea of learning languages, and it's quite a cool concept because basically what it means is 20% of what you learn makes 80% of the difference. And this can be applied to words in German. So a lot of the time you will use that 20% of words in German, the most commonly used 20% of words in German. But that will make 80% of the difference because 80% of the time you will only be using those words, and it's only the other 20% of the time that you'll be using the more complex, less well-known vocabulary. I don't think I explained that particularly well, but hopefully you get the idea. And if you're interested in learning more about the 80-20 rule, there are loads and loads of resources online that explain it in a much better way than I just have. When I was doing German GCSE, I literally could not make up answers on the spot for my oral exam, like I just couldn't do it. So I used to sit there and I used to type out my oral exam answers and learn some of them so that I had something to say in the exam. But as soon as I went to Germany, that was no longer an effective method of speaking to other people. There was no way I was going to have an answer prepared for every single question that everybody asked me. If you're learning a GCSE in a language, learning the most commonly spoken words is not going to be enough. You're going to have to learn more, or if you're studying any sort of qualification in another language. And in order to learn your words, I would recommend Quizlet. So what I would do is I would go through my grammar book, because that was what I was mainly using to work from, but you can do the same with your, I don't know, your notes from school or your workbook. Basically, work through it and find all the words that you didn't know originally or you wouldn't know just from looking at them, and then put them into a Quizlet so that you are learning the words that you find the most difficult, and you're not spending hours typing out the same answers on things that you've already known or you've known for years. The next tip, which I guess doesn't work as well if you're actually doing an exam in something because you have to learn specific vocab, but if you can, learn vocab in different ways. So for example, the other day I was just trying to learn some new vocab. I didn't specifically know what I wanted to learn because I'm not doing an exam at the moment, so it's not like, oh, I need to learn food words this week. No. So I printed off a translation worksheet. It was just like a random set of sentences, printed that off, and then I learned a few new words through doing that because they were words that I didn't already know beforehand. However, by doing a worksheet, it was a lot more fun than just sitting at my laptop typing out flashcards for hours on end about words that I didn't necessarily know the context to, because that's the other thing. When you're learning vocab in the context of a sentence, it then gives you a greater understanding of when you can use it in the future. Additionally, I used to use flashcards to test myself on the grammar over in Germany because I actually had a test at the end of my language course after the 10 or 12 weeks of it. So I have these flashcards that I'd actually written the grammar onto whilst I was in Germany, but I didn't just sit there and read through them and go, okay, yeah, I understand that one. Oh, okay, yeah, I understand that one. Because that does not work. Like, I'm sorry to burst your bubble if that's what you've been doing, but what you need to do is test yourself on these. Because in the exam, you're not going to have this flashcards to hand. You're not going to be like, oh, you know what, I've forgotten the nominative form of, I don't know, or the accusative form of das. And you're not going to be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just get my flashcard out, because you can't do that during an exam. So you need to have it up here, and you need to be able to recall it, the exact forms, when you need to. And the best way to do this is to read through all your flashcards, be like, right, okay, now I'm going to test myself. I might know nothing, but it's fine, because this is for learning. Get a scrap piece of paper and write out everything you know about what's on your flashcards, and then fill in the gaps. I know this only works for certain things and you can't necessarily do this for everything, but I found for like grammar tables, this was so useful. And I used to do this on the train on the way to my language course. My next tip is to use your grammar workbook. Now, whilst I did GCSE, I had a grammar workbook. Did I touch a single page of it? No. Because did I think that was extra work and I was absolutely not signing up for extra work? Yes. So I then got my grammar workbook out when I was about to go out to Germany, because it was the easiest and quickest way for me to learn German, and I didn't have any other German books, so that was my only option. And honestly, I understood the grammar so much better the second time around when I was learning it. I mean, maybe this is because I was older, but also the way that the workbook explains it is so simple and easy to follow. And I would so recommend, once you've learnt a bit of grammar in school, coming home, doing the workbook, or doing it as revision at the end of your course, because it's going to really consolidate that knowledge in your head. And I wish I had done this for German GCSE, because the grammar was the bane of my existence. I could not get my head around it to save my life. And my next tip is to get yourself a grammar sheet. I think I still have mine actually from when I was in Germany, so I'm just going to see if I can find that.
A few moments later.
Okay, yeah, I do have it. So this is my book that I used whilst I was out in Germany doing my language course. And as you can see here, top engineering going on here. I've made a pocket in the front of my book. And if you pull this out, oh, and there's another one. I don't know what this one is. Inside here, oh look here. So this is what I was talking about when I said I used to go through what I knew on the train. So I used to literally write out everything that I knew on those flashcards and then tick and cross. And you can see I made mistakes, but it was a way that I could learn easily. So I'll show you that. And then what I was talking about with my grammar sheet. So I used to have this sheet, which literally, as you can see, it's just what was on my flashcards when I made them later down the line. But at the time, I just used this sheet and I had it in the front of my book. And every time I got into my language class, it's double-sided by the way. Every time I got into my language class, I would just look at this, I would have it out on the table, and if I was ever stuck on anything, I would look it up. But because I was doing it so often and recalling that information, it became so second nature to me that I didn't need the sheet by the end because it was all up here. And so even though you might be relying on a sheet at one point, there'll be a time when you can just put it away. And if I remember rightly, when I was back in GCSE German, I think we were told to have a grammar sheet, but did I listen? No. Did I think I knew best? I'd just leave it in my folder? Yes. My next tip is just to practice, practice, practice. You will not get better unless you just continually keep practicing at a language. I remember when I was getting up in Germany and I'd think, oh, I've got to work out how to say everything in German today. And it was so easy to flip into English because most of the people I was talking to did understand English or could help me out in some way. But you've really got to force yourself to speak in German because otherwise you just won't improve. And I guess I kind of find this out the hard way because when I was in Germany, I did improve massively from when I first was there. Like, I literally say hello, thank you, and I couldn't understand anything that was happening around the house. But at the end I could understand a lot more, but I definitely could have improved more if I'd made more of an effort, and that is something that I do regret quite a lot now. And I remember this also when I was at school. My teacher offered, I think it was Tuesday lunchtime at sessions, where we could just come and practice our speaking. And as I said before, my speaking has always been the thing that I found hardest in German. And so I used to go along to these speaking sessions. It was just me and one of my friends, one of the other students in the class, who was really good at German, so it was really helpful to hear her speaking it. And we just used to sit there and practice German every single Tuesday up until my GCSE. And I got an A, which honestly, if you'd have seen me speaking German at the start of like year 10, even at the end of year 10, you would have been like, right, okay. So that was like, I came so far by doing that speaking, and I would say I worked really, really hard to make sure that my speaking was better. And you really do have to put the effort in. And the only reason that I was able to do this was because I asked for help. And that's my next tip. You need to ask for help when you don't understand, because otherwise you're just going to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. So my host family in Germany would be more than happy to explain like a word to me or help me out when I didn't understand. And even though I felt quite awkward asking them to, particularly at the beginning because I didn't really know them very well, it was one of the most useful things. But if you're sat there in your German lesson, or I don't know, wherever you are learning German, and you're really confused about something that's going on, don't sit there silently and say nothing. I mean, you can imagine me being the one who would always pipe up with, I have a question, but don't sit there silently. Instead, ask questions, try and understand what you don't understand at the moment, and that is how you're going to improve so much quicker. By practicing and by asking questions, they are the two main ways that you're going to improve your learning. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that my way of learning German is the best, because it's probably not, and I'm probably still making an awful lot of mistakes and an awful lot of things that I could do better. But I think by having a different perspective, by learning German a different way with a different emphasis on it, I've been able to understand more where I went wrong originally and why I wasn't able to pick up German as quickly as I wanted to. So hopefully these tips have been useful for you. Who knows, it might have just been me rambling for 15 minutes. But if you have enjoyed these tips, then do give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, turn on the bell so that you're notified when I post, and leave me a comment telling me all about whether you're learning German, if you're learning another language, what language are you learning, and we can have a chat in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.